Hello, I am the Unfeeling. This is part 3 of my venture into finding out what feminism is all about. I have zoomed in within the browser to try to minimize instances where the photos don't appear on screen as large as they can. Hopefully it turns out better in this video. Anyway, today's blog is Our Bodies, Our Blog. The Take Part article had this to say about it.
Our Bodies, Our Blog is your daily dose of women's health news and analysis.
Pretty straightforward. Let's go to their site and look at their About section.
Our Bodies Ourselves, OBOS, is a non-profit, public interest organization based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, that develops and promotes evidence-based information on girls' and women's reproductive health and sexuality. OBOS is a landmark publication. Our Bodies, Ourselves, has sold millions of copies around the world and has been translated into more than 24 languages. The most recent U.S. edition, published in 2011, was named by Library Journal as one of the best consumer health books of that year. For more than 40 years, Our Bodies Ourselves, formerly the Boston Women's Health Book Collective, has been committed to serving only in the public interest and remains one of the few health groups that doesn't accept funds from pharmaceutical companies. OBOS's health information, in book format and online, meets international standards for health research. Working in collaboration with U.S. and global organizations, OBOS vigorously advocates for women's health by challenging institutions and systems that devalue women and prevent them from having full control over their bodies and their health. The Our Bodies Ourselves global initiative provides support for and works closely with women's groups that are adapting our bodies, ourselves for their own countries and communities. OBOS is supported by individual donors and institutional funders, including the Appleton Charitable Foundation, Archibald Family Charitable Foundation, Catalyst Fund, Common Benefit Litigation Trust, IPAS, and the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. Along with providing accurate, evidence-based information, OBOS's texts address the social, economic and political conditions that affect healthcare access and quality of care. This contextual information has inspired readers to learn more about, and to change, laws and policies that affect their own and their family's well-being. OBOS's books, which include single-topic editions on menopause and pregnancy and birth, have received numerous honors. In 2011, Time magazine recognized Our Bodies, Ourselves as one of the best 100 non-fiction books, in English, since the founding of Time in 1923. In 2012, the Library of Congress included the original Our Bodies, Ourselves in the exhibit Books That Shaped America, a collection of 88 non-fiction and fiction titles intended to spark a national conversation on books written by Americans that have influenced our lives. Our Bodies, Ourselves has also stirred controversy since its inception. It has been banned by high schools and public libraries across the country. Jerry Falwell of Moral Majority once famously condemned the book as obscene trash. The most recent titles, along with information on bulk orders and clinic discounts, are available in the publications section.
This sounds like an organization that has fought for women's rights. I don't have any problems with such a thing, as I believe women should be treated equally to men in our society. I won't go read their publications, perhaps in a later video, but right now I just want to see what their blog is all about. The first article is titled, Massachusetts Governor Signs Abortion Clinic Access Bill into Law.
Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick today signed into a law a bill to protect access to health clinics where abortions are performed. I am incredibly proud to sign legislation that continues Massachusetts' leadership in ensuring that women seeking to access reproductive health facilities can do so safely and without harassment, and that the employees of those facilities can arrive at work each day without fear of harm, Patrick said in a statement.
Assuming the bill does what the article claims it does, as I know bills can be very tricky, then I support it. Politicians are sneaky bastards that usually shouldn't be trusted. However, there are occasions where they do good things, and I believe this is one of them. Allow me to explain why I am pro-choice. I completely support the notion that everyone has their right to life, but I also believe they have the right to their liberty as well. There isn't a single word, or right, or amendment of the U.S. Constitution which is more important than another. It is my belief that a woman's right to her liberty, in this instance, The right to govern what happens to her body if she has a choice in the matter, is more important than a fetus's right to life. I am not saying that a fetus deserves to die. I'm not saying that it isn't killing life. What I am saying is that a woman's decision of whether she wants to carry a fetus for 9 months overrules whatever right to life the fetus itself has. If you are pro-life and believe all abortions should be banned, what you are saying is that the government has more control over a woman's body than she does. Once she becomes pregnant, her body is governed by the state, and thus she can't have an abortion if she doesn't want to be a mother. Many believe that if a woman is careless and gets pregnant, she has a responsibility to have the child and raise it. But what they fail to realize is that they are treating parenthood as if it's a punishment, and not something someone should do within their own free will. What kind of person would want to force a woman to have a child she doesn't want, and expect the child to have a healthy living environment? While some would argue that it isn't right to take away the fetus's life because the would-be mother doesn't want it, I would argue that it isn't right to force a woman to have a child against her will and expect her to take care of it for at least 18 years. Or even if one is suggesting that she could easily give the child up for adoption once it's born, you're still advocating for a woman to go through the stress, emotional turmoil, and pain of pregnancy and childbirth against her will. Better the fetus remains ignorant of its own existence than to grow up in a neglectful environment, or perhaps poor living conditions, where it has very little chances to succeed, and is statistically more likely to repeat the same pattern their mother was a part of that gave way to their existence in the first place. Again, constitutionally speaking, a fetus has its right to life, but I believe that a woman's right to her liberty overrules it. Now if only we could give men a similar option when it comes to reproductive rights, but that is an entirely different matter.
Under the new law, protesters may not block access to a clinic entrance or driveway. Police may order protesters who substantially impede access to a marked area 25 feet away from the entrance or driveway for up to 8 hours. Failure to comply with the order may result in misdemeanor criminal charges, punishable by a fine of up to $500 and imprisonment of up to 3 months for the first offense.
For the most part, I agree with this. One should have their right to protest, but they shouldn't be allowed to stop others from engaging in services just because they disagree with them. However, I do feel like 3 months imprisonment for a first offense is a bit steep. Perhaps 1 month would be enough, who knows? The next article is entitled, "Do Healthy Women Need Annual Pelvic Exams?"
More than 60 million pelvic exams are performed each year, but a new guideline from the American College of Physicians suggests that for most healthy women, they're not needed. The guideline is based on a 2013 systematic review conducted by the Evidence-Based Synthesis Program, ESP, Center of the Minneapolis VA Medical Center. The review looked at the usefulness of pelvic exams in detecting non-cervical cancer, pelvic inflammatory disease, and benign gynecological conditions and found that for most women there is no evidence to support the practice. For the purpose of the research, a pelvic exam refers to using a speculum to examine the vagina and cervix, and a bimanual examination of the uterus, fallopian tubes, ovaries and bladder. It does not include obtaining a Pap test for cervical cancer screening. Learn more about cervical cancer screening guidelines. It's also important to note that the recommendations apply only to average-risk adult women who are not pregnant and who do not have any symptoms, such as pelvic pain, which might mean there is a problem such as endometriosis, ovarian cysts, other pelvic organ problems, or infection. The review considered whether the harms of the pelvic exam are outweighed by the benefits, and whether these vary by patient or provider characteristics. Possible harms include fear, anxiety, embarrassment, pain and discomfort, as well as urinary tract infections and symptoms, overdiagnosis, and overtreatment. There are also potential procedure-related harms. For example, researchers report that heavier women are more likely than women of average weight to report more disrespect and embarrassment during a pelvic exam. Women with a history of exposure to sexual violence are also more likely to report fear, embarrassment and anxiety.
Wait, what? One moment it's talking about the validity of a pelvic exam, but then it starts talking about the harms of having one and lists fear, anxiety, embarrassment, pain and discomfort as harms. Now I don't know anything about the medical validity of a pelvic exam, as I am not a doctor or a medical researcher. However, how many medical exams can pretty much everyone say have caused them some level of fear, anxiety, embarrassment, pain and discomfort? How many people do we all know that are terrified of needles and will postpone any shots they need until it's absolutely necessary? And let's not forget that a hell of a lot of sexually active males that have been examined can never look at a Q-tip the same way again, so I don't really see the point in bringing up discomfort. Medical procedures are there for a reason, and while doctors are trained to keep their patients as comfortable as possible, their comfort is secondary compared to diagnosing and treating illnesses and ailments. The article continues to explain there is little evidence to show benefit of having a pelvic exam, as quote-unquote indirect evidence showed that screening pelvic examination does not reduce mortality or morbidity rates in asymptomatic adult women. In other words, for healthy women that show no symptoms of things such as pelvic pain, a pelvic examination may cause unnecessary fear, anxiety, embarrassment, pain and discomfort, as well as urinary tract infections and symptoms, overdiagnosis, and overtreatment. I don't know whether that is true or not, but the one comment on this article carries the same opinion as I do.
I never considered the harmful effects of pelvic exams on some women. I receive one every year and it is definitely not something I looked forward to. Being that I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes about 2 years ago, I have physicals and exams a lot more frequent than I used to. As for women who are in good health, it doesn't hurt to be checked once a year. A lot can change in a year. The incidence of reproductive cancers in women are increasing each year and it's better to be safe than sorry.
The next article is entitled "Want More Quality Reporting on Abortion Rights? Partner with Clinic Stories." The article explains that a woman by the name of Robin Marty is creating a 12-part series called Clinic Stories, going over the history of different clinics as well as the people involved in them. I don't really see an issue with this. It would be very interesting to see the struggles those clinics have had to go through since they've been created. I also don't have an issue with this project because it's someone doing what they believe in, and not waiting for someone else to do it for them. Even if I disagree with someone's stance, which in this case I'm pro-choice, I can respect them for not just complaining about it, and actually doing something to make a change. However, I did have one slight issue with the way this article is presented, mainly from Miss Marty's words.
In an interview for the Mamafesto, Robin explains her frustrations with working up important stories on reproductive rights only to have publications either mark them as not national enough to publish or hold them until they are not useful for inspiring action. Clinic Stories will allow her to bypass the gatekeepers. The outpouring of support and resources so far has been amazing, Robin told me via email, adding that it's made her realize both how much people want a way to stand up to these threats on reproductive rights, and how they also feel they aren't getting the stories that they want from the mainstream media. These are local threats and local issues, and if we ignore them until the media thinks they've hit a crisis point that will appeal to a national audience, then it's already too late to effect change, she added.
Although I am pro-choice, I dislike using buzzwords and catchphrases like threats on reproductive rights. When talking to other people that are pro-choice, it seems that sometimes they feel like having legal abortions is such an obvious choice. Her body, her choice. But it's not so cut and dry, at least when it comes to what our society thinks about abortion. I found a Gallup poll that was conducted from May 8 to May 11, 2014. As you can see from the chart, only 1% more people qualify as pro-choice. Now with the title of this Gallup article being, U.S. Still Split on Abortion, 47% pro-choice, 46% pro-life, it wouldn't be difficult for someone to see this and just run with it. However, one has to continue reading to see that it's a very different story after all. When asked to what degree did they believe abortion should be legal, the numbers quickly changed. Suddenly, only 28% believed abortion should be legal, while nearly twice as many people believe abortion should only be legal under certain circumstances. So while the people who believe all abortions should be legal, and people who believe all abortions should be illegal, are still somewhat close to each other, more people that both groups combined believe it should only be legal some of the time. I would assume they mean instances where a woman became pregnant through rape, or other circumstances that don't include irresponsible sex. This is just a minor gripe I tend to have with those who are pro-choice and treat it as if it's such an obvious thing that should just be legal without controversy already. Anyway, I usually stop at 3 articles just to get a feel for the website, but the next article's title caught my attention and I just had to read it. Are breast implants absolutely safe? OBOS keeps focus on health risks.
As New York subway riders know, advertising for breast augmentation is on the rise, with more explicit imagery than ever before. These ads are obviously good at attracting attention, but not so much when it comes to providing information. They never describe the risks, nor do they acknowledge the potential complications that can arise from breast implants. For all the facts, read this updated and expanded article that addresses the known risks and answers such as questions as what happens when breast implants break, do breast implants make women sick, and what if I need to get my implants removed?
I understand what the article is saying, but this is something that is common in advertising as a whole, not just about breast implants. The advertisements are there to sell a product, to entice women to go see a surgeon about some enhancements, where risks would be, or at least should be discussed. I did read the article that listed the risks of having breast implants, and there certainly are plenty of risks, but to expect the ads to display all those risks out in the open is a little unrealistic. Even ads that do have the risks listed do it in small print, and if it's on TV or radio, they say it as quickly as possible. Advertisement doesn't want to put all the negatives in big bold print for everyone to see. That's how they would go out of business. The article isn't bad. It's actually pretty informative. I just think it's looking at advertisement in an unrealistic way and treating the issue as if risks are never discussed when people go in for cosmetic surgery. At any rate, I'm not going to go any further on this site. It seems to be a pretty good site with only very minor issues. There is an article I saw that I strongly disagreed with, but didn't cover because it was a little out of the way. It was about breastfeeding and says that not only should women be able to breastfeed in public, but it should be normalized in our society. It even cites an instance where a university professor breastfed her daughter while giving a lecture to her students. It's not surprising that some students found it appalling and unprofessional. Personally, I feel like it shouldn't be done out in the open in public. I would support having more private areas where women could do such a thing, so that their children can be fed and it doesn't make people uncomfortable or make the woman come off as unprofessional, like that university professor. One of the rules I live my life by is, if I don't want anyone to take pictures or videos of me doing something, I don't do it in public. I think breastfeeding should be treated in the same way. There's no reason to force it to be normalized, just so women can be free to breastfeed their children around others in public. It's distracting, classless, and downright inconsiderate to everyone around them. But that's just my opinion of it. I've put a link to the article in the description so you can read it for yourself. Next week, I'll be looking at Jezebel,